All right, guys, welcome to today's intro. Today we're with Ali. Can you introduce yourself? That'd be much appreciated.
Of course, guys. Well, first, Ethan, thank you for having me. Very excited to speak to you. I love young guns who are still in high school, doing things like this because it brings me back to, what we should be doing as young men, creating legacy and generational wealth. So appreciate you having me. Of
Of course, anytime. So if you could just quickly introduce yourself, that'll be sweet.
course. Okay, so I go by Ali the Alchemist. I'm a best-selling author. I'm a TEDx speaker scheduled for later this year. I'm also an eight-figure entrepreneur. I've created 3 different companies that all hit 7 figures, accumulating 8 figures in wealth, and then learning how to invest and create generational wealth. That's kind of my goal. I've invested over $500,000 in personal development from my start of my journey, last 6 years of being an entrepreneur. And unlike a lot of entrepreneurs, I did the whole college route. So I went to college, I got a full scholarship, academic scholarship. I got 2 degrees, and then I got into corporate America. I worked
Yeah.
3 years on the dot and then quit and started my own business. And just like any entrepreneur, I had a couple of ups and downs, but every lesson was a feedback loop on what to improve. In every business, I kind of leveled up. And then during this process, I learned how to level up every aspect of life, not just money, but in the last 12 months, I got fit. I lost 65 pounds. I got jacked. Crazy physique transformation. I also, in the meantime, retired my family. I attracted my dream girl. I built a community, and I did a lot of things that a lot of people they forget during the pursuit to entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, it's a holistic approach. You got to be wealthy in multiple things, not just financially, even though it's a big component, but spiritually, physically, mentally. And so through this content, through these ventures that all kind of tie in together, which are on the verge of education, marketing, tech,
Yeah.
implementing all these things. I've made a lot of money online, and now my goal is to create a community for myself and generational wealth for everyone around me.
Yeah, appreciate you sharing that. And for quick context, if everyone's new to this channel, my name's Ethan. I'm the CEO and founder of Blackfire Consulting, which is a content marketing agency that has generated over 335 million views online. In today's video specifically, we're just talking about content, what we see, what works, what we see that doesn't work, and what most creators get wrong about content and what they should do, and upcoming trends, AI tools, etc. So really, Ali, just to get started with like the questions, is when people say content, you could say, is saturated, what are they actually like misdiagnosing?
I think when people say, like anything else, right? People say real estate is saturated. There's millions of realtors. Yes, content saturated. There's millions of pieces of content. I think it's the creativity that's missing. Yes, content is saturated, but if you keep regurgitating the same information over and over again, of course it's gonna get saturated, right? If everyone's talking about the same basic 3 books, my morning routine, this and that, of course, everyone sees that, but the biggest thing is creating these content pillars that you can discuss. I'll give you an example. So my Instagram specifically has made me 7 figures just from my IG. And I'm not talking about IG or Facebook monetization. I'm talking about selling services from my IG, right? And then I see people with YouTube that are not just generating income from YouTube, but they're generating income from monetization and whatever they're selling. So when of course, and there's layers of content. I talked about the brand pillars. So I have 4 brand pillars, and everyone, if you're watching this, I want you to create your own brand pillars, because these are the pillars that all your content is modeled off of. So mine, and if you know my brand, Ethan, you did a little bit of research, you'll see when I say these pillars. So mine are this: entrepreneurship, which is everything related to streams of income, personal development, money making, motivation, mindset, all that. Second one is spirituality. So I teach a lot of connection to God, reading all the theologies, philosophies. Okay. Then from there, I discuss creativity, the art of creation, UX, UI, tattoos, editing, all that creative. Okay. And then the last thing is healthy lifestyle, mind, body, business, soul. Now, when I see these 4 brand pillars, all of whoever's watching have 3 to 5 brand pillars, and that's what's going to help you create very creative, unique content. If you keep doing the same stuff that everyone's doing, talking head, here's my 3 mistakes. Like, yeah, of course, it gets saturated. But the more you get creative in terms of cinematic, in terms of hook, in terms of attention and leverage, that's when it really changes the game. So I don't really believe it's saturated. Boring content saturated, of course, but the more you dive into being authentic, being creative, that's when you can really change the game.
Yeah, 100%, and I agree with you. And just to add on to that point, especially around the creativity side, I found that the reason why people have these messages that all sound the same, because for me, marketing is standing out without breaking your trust, your reputation, etc. And for that to happen, most people that we can see online, you can name a lot. There's like the top 10 books to get rich in 2025. They're great ideas and they will help to people. It just depends on like what extent does it help the viewer, and also what extent does the content help the business owner itself. And most people have their videos just have the conclusion of the reasoning, not the reasoning behind it. It's more along the lines of, here's what I did. It wasn't necessarily how I did it. And then especially around the point too of just standing out, it's really important to do. So with that being said, along the lines of standing out, really the next subject comes like virality. So like what's the biggest myth that people get when it comes to I want to go viral?
Okay, so let me first, before we get into I want to go viral, let's talk about the framework that's needed in every content. Okay, and this is the same framework. So I've done a load of videos. Not all of them have been viral, but the few that go viral create conversion, right? Conversion events where it's call to action. They join my community, they buy something I'm selling, they send me a DM, whatever that aspect is. Okay, so here's the framework. So first is attention. You've seen someone do this very well. Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate, he said the most off the wall stuff to get attention. And then once you get the attention, when you listen to the rest of his sentence, you're like, oh, I agree with that actually. I see what he meant. But in the beginning, it like boggles your mind because you're like, oh, you're throwing back, right? You're like, why do you say that? And Andrew Tate is just one example because he's one of the most viral men on the planet without having any socials. But many people do that. They call it a scroll stopper or a pattern interrupter, right? So attention is the first piece of the framework. Second is building trust. Once you have the attention, the scroll stopper or the something to get their attention, you go in and you build trust by giving them a statistic, a fact, something that you've done, case study, a testimonial, right? So this is a framework that you can use. Any piece of content should have the attention, building the trust, and then the leverage. The leverage is what gets you paid. Leverage is what's the next step? How could you help them? How could they benefit?
It's the intent.
What you just said, Ethan, a lot of people go to the leverage without stopping the attention, without building the trust. So it's just another person, flashing their watch or flashing the Lamborghini. That's why that kind of content's not cool anymore. How many times have you seen a Lamborghini today on Instagram? Hundreds, thousands of times. It doesn't catch attention anymore. It might get a follower, but it won't create conversion. And to me, that's what's more important, the conversion. That's why I've seen people, I'll give you two examples. One of my clients gets 25,000 subs on YouTube, only $4,000 on Instagram, 25K, I think it's at 26K now on YouTube, 150K a month, 150K revenue a month, because he's not flashing all the random stuff. He's literally giving value. I've seen a couple people that I follow, 0 to 100K on YouTube. Neuro Knowledge, another example. Spirituality, 0 to 400,000, almost $500,000 a month, because now his info product, his coaching is $50,000. So that just shows you, and he literally has a whiteboard, no thumbnail, nothing, just straight value. Okay? That's another example. All right, with me, I have 200,000 on Instagram. I have only 1,800 on YouTube. 1,800, and in the last 3 months, I've made 96 grand from my coaching. Joining communities on school. I started my own school community, School of Alchemy. Joined that, and then I gave so much value twice a week. And then on YouTube, I only have like 7 or 8 videos out. When they see that, they watch it all the way through. They join my school, and they're like, I want to work with you one-on-one. Boom. So you have to have that framework: attention, trust, leverage. Now, to answer your question about virality, virality comes from a few different factors. First, you need to understand what's hot, what's trending right now. A lot of times when people hop on trends, it's already too late. So you got to find the trends before it's actually a trend, or see the trend coming, right? Whether it's like a specific kind of concept, whether it's a specific sound, whether it's like I'll give you an example. In
lighting style.
Yeah, editing style, exactly. And I was really good. One of my my marketing agency was my first business that did really well. It was an info product marketing agency. So anything I sold, I practiced on myself. So I was selling people amazing edits, cinematic edits on their social media.
Yeah.
Guess who was the first practicer and preacher of that? Me. I'm like, yo, this is what it looked like. When people were doing talking heads and it was getting popular 5 years ago, I was doing that before it got popular. You know, I was dropping value. And of course, we can talk about frequency and all that kind of stuff.
And all that fun stuff.
Three videos a day, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not about quantity necessarily.
Quality.
It's about good quality, right? And you want to be intentional with the content. Yeah, a lot of people drop 100 videos a month. Of course, you're bound to go viral, but it has to do with integrating the trends, having specific edits that also catches attention. Also, the way you speak, and I've seen, because I've done over 300 info products for different clients. When you get on with somebody and they're expert at real estate or Amazon wholesaling or credit or funding, but the minute they get in front of the camera, they forget what they're. So you have to have a little bit of aura and magnetism and ability to speak and ability to teach.
Charisma.
It's a holistic package. That's what allows you to go viral. It's not, and if you might go viral once, I'll give you a funny story. My first video ever on TikTok, 1 million views. First video ever posted. Okay. But it was something completely outside my niche. Right. And I'll tell you, it was like we went to the AR zombie thing, AR, VR zombie thing, and it went viral because of the way we edited it. But that was lucky. It took me another 3-4 months before I went viral again. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes it's just timing, but then if you understand the trends, the current, the state, what's hot, what's not, how to present yourself, you have higher likelihood of getting viral.
100%. And yeah, just to add on to that too, like for you have your frameworks, I have mine, especially like around content. You have a 3-point pillar system of just like how to create good content. But also, I believe another thing you have to address is like, what are you optimizing for in the first place? Are you a media business who's just trying to go for straight views, monetize like Mr. Beast style? Or are you a business owner creating content to get customers? And there's really kind of 2 frameworks. They're the exact same acronym, but it's just 2 layers. Every good video needs to die, which first of all gets the person's attention. Like, what do you mean a good video needs to die? A good video needs to disrupt, get the person's attention, either inject the entertainment or the education or a mix of both, and then execute. This is the first layer. 90% of the people have those great ideas. They know what they're doing, but they don't actually create the video, upload it, etc. Then really in the next part, that's more along the line side of you're a business owner creating content, is disrupt, inject, execute. But it's like, what belief does the prospect or the viewer currently have? What thing are you going to inject? What's the new belief they're going to inject to them? And then what's the next course of action? So it's very similar to you. It's like you need a CTA, etc. Like ours is like, how do you get the prospect, i.e. the viewer, to have so much intent that they want to do next steps? That's really a good way to create content.
Repeat it for me one more time. DIE. I'm gonna write this.
Yeah, every good video needs to die. So like I just died. So every good video needs to die. Disrupt, inject, execute. That's like the first thing. And it's really just how I do my frameworks in general, whether it's speaking with clients or just friends or just like these calls, is there's multiple frameworks. Disrupt is one of the most important ones. And then the kind of first question I ask with clients, etc., is like, what are you optimizing for? And then really the next or just more kind of my framework around is like, what's the biggest lever that we can pull? What's the biggest thing that can do 10x the amount of views or 10x the amount of traffic or 10x the amount of sales? And then like, what are the micro optimizations? Micro optimizations are not just we had a 3-5% increase here. It's the 50% increase. And the massive ones could be 10x. That's why I transitioned away from sales to more marketing based, is even if you have a sales rate and your conversion is 100%, fantastic, that's great for you. That's technically a vanity metric in the sense that you don't want to close 100% of the people because they might not always be the right fit. That's why I transitioned to marketing, is even if you have a decent sales rate, good for you, but you can 10x the amount of like input you're going through. Maybe, of course, lead quality aside, maybe get like 2 to 3x the amount of sales just from that with less chargebacks based off of your messaging. So I definitely agree with you on that. So if you could like more walk me down, like what are the first questions that you kind of ask for your clients in regards to, let's say they're a business owner, they're just getting started with social media, they don't really know how to structure it, but of course they know what social media is. So like what are the first few questions do you ask to them, let's say on an onboarding call?
Yeah, so look, my first agency was the marketing agency, right? As I got better at doing info products, I was the growth operator. I did the marketing, the ops, the systems, the sales, the ads. So as I evolved last 2-3 years, I'm very, very niche. I charge very high ticket, 50K and up, and I take 20 to 30% of the profit that I bring. So it's not a quantity game for me. But let's just say someone was starting, right? Because a lot of people, they come to me, they're like, Ali, I have a business. I'm really good at real estate wholesaling. Okay, I'm giving you an example. But I want to start an info product based on this. How should I do my content? Right? All right, cool. Well, first thing, are you an expert in this industry? Yes. Okay, cool. You're an expert on info. Can you explain this to me, real estate, in as if you're explaining to a 5-year-old? You can't do that, then you're not going to get anywhere with content, because if it's hard for you to even put it in words, yes, a lot of people are like, oh, my info is up here, my expertise is up here. Well, it doesn't matter, because you got to get it from here on paper, from paper to camera, camera to view. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So with that being said, we have to reverse engineer what the messaging is. So we have to get very clear on what the offer is. Okay. What's the offer? What are you selling? What's the transformation? What's the A to B? You know, point A to point B. What is the results you're selling? Are you teaching people from scratch, or are you teaching people that already have an understanding that want to get to, you know, the next level? So the offer clarity is very, very important. Next, I think I go back to brand pillars. What are some brand pillars? Because if you get on and only talk about real estate, it might get boring. But if you talk about real estate and family and wealth creation, then
you attract the larger audiences.
Correct. You cast the net wide, and then you funnel in, right? So I'll give you an example. One of the communities I'm working with is EPG, Earn, Protect, Grow. So it's all financial literacy, but earning is active income, inactive income, credit, funding. Cast the net wide. Then it goes to trust and insurance, you know, protecting your wealth. Then it goes to grow, which is growing your wealth. So I cast the net wide. By the time someone gets here in the funnel, they're already purchasing, because they hit all the other, you know, they hit all the other key points. So brand pillars are very important. After the offer, after the brand pillar, my next important question that I haven't really seen anyone talk about is the fulfillment process. So fulfillment in content is a whole thing. Yes, with tools, with AI, with you know, tools like Opus and Repurpose and all these types of things, yes, you can have a one-man team. But if you really want to scale content, you have to have an infrastructure where there's daily input, daily output. You know, so from the beginning, from 2019, when I started my marketing agency, I always had a graphic designer on my team. I always have 1 to 2 editors on my team. I always had a social media manager. I can post on all these pages. A lot of people are like, oh, I want to get 1 billion views. I'm like, all right, well, why don't you spend 5K to build a team? I don't know if I want to do that. Well, it doesn't work that way, right? You have to have an infrastructure. And that's why fulfillment is a very important question that most people don't ask. They think of the end result. The first step is having a system. The input. Yeah, you have to have the system. Okay, what days are you going to shoot? Oh, I don't know. You know, well, how about you set aside 1 day? Because 1 day a week you shoot, you can get enough content for a month if you do it correctly, right? Are you comfortable speaking on stage? Are you comfortable speaking on podcasts? No, I don't want to be on camera. Well, how do you think?
How would that work? Yeah,
exactly.
LinkedIn posts, but that's really it.
Yeah, sure. But even LinkedIn, again, people are going away. So in 2026, people are going away from buying from companies, and they're buying from personal brands more and more. Personal branding started 2017, 2020, before COVID. People like Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins, all these people made it hot. Then it went a little bit more wide community. Now it's going back to personal brands. People are buying from people. People are not buying from companies, right? Yeah. So that's why that personal brand element's very. Can you relate to an audience? Can you relate to multiple people? Do you have the output to sustain? The thing about content, if you want to do it correctly, once you start content output, you can't stop. So that's why you have to have a team. Yes, and if you stop, like I've stopped a couple of times. When I made a bunch of money, my biggest win was in crypto. I took 300K and I made $3.5 million in a day. So after that, I'm like, all right, I need to reposition my content. It's not about volume anymore. It's about throwing events and getting that cinematic content and posting it for my, you know, my personal brand and showing that authority and showing that stage presence.
100%.
It's a little different. You see what I'm saying? But you have to have a system. A lot of people don't have a system, and that's why everything crumbles. So those are the first 3 questions I would ask. The system being the most important one. What's the infrastructure you're putting in place? to sustain this amount of content in the next 6 months.
Yeah. And just to dig in deeper for that, another biggest thing is like, how do you structure the funnel and like what platforms are you going to use? Because I know there's so many ways. So two kind of things you have to address. There's so many things, there's so many variables with content. And then there's so many ways to structure your funnel in the sense of like monetization. And for me, it's the keep it simple, stupid. Like you don't want to have 25 landing pages, of course, to split test ads if you have a massive scale. But if you have 6 Instagram pages, 3 YouTube pages, etc., like you're going to spread too thin, you're going to crumble. So when it comes to structuring a, let's say, a client's funnel of yours, if you could map, like if you could like rank YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn in order of like, would it be Instagram is more top of the funnel, typically YouTube's more bottom of the funnel? Like how is that kind of structured? Of course, it has to be more specific to the client, but like what's your generalization around that?
Great question. So I think it's evolved over the past 5-6 years, the way social media is involved, right? So my original funnel when I started doing info products a couple of years ago was in Instagram to either organic content and Facebook ads leading to the Instagram, to a landing page on ClickFunnels, to a Kajabi course.
Yeah.
That was the funnel, right? The old funnel. ClickFunnels, like you have $100 million leads and stuff behind you. Before Alex Hermosi, the king of marketing was Russell Brunson, right? Founder. Whoever's watching, if you haven't read .com Secrets, Expert Secrets, and Traffic Secrets, that's your Bibles, right? For a marketer, everyone should read that. If you read a combination of those 3 books, he has a few more, but those 3, and then Alex Hermosi's, I'm pointing because I have them right here too. $100 million offers, leads, and money models. You will be golden. You will have every single aspect of the value ladder, the CTA, the call out, the ICP, everything kind of dialed in. And now it's about testing your offer. So back then, I just gave you the funnel. Newer, I think it's a little bit different. Instagram is more top of the funnel because now it acts like a business card. Whenever we go to an event, people are like, let me get your IG. So it's your base level business card. YouTube is a little bit more niche. By the time someone watches 20, 30 hours of your YouTube, they're a fan for life. You know what I'm saying? So you want to create a funnel where they can go from short form, seeing you constantly top of mind, to the long form, becoming a super fan, to getting to purchasing your product. Now, it's not about which one's better than the other. Some people are really good at short form. YouTube and long form is a beast in and of itself. You have to be really good at teaching, engaging, capturing people's attention, retaining their attention. Okay. Instagram short form is easy. And then you can duplicate it for Reels. You can duplicate it for TikTok, Shorts, all that's easy. Long form and getting retention, way different ball game, right? But in my opinion, if you master YouTube, you could take YouTube long form and chop it up into short form. You can't take short form and chop it up into long form. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of people do the podcast and they chop up podcasts. And now from one episode, 1 hour, you got 30 different clips, right? But I think nowadays, building brand and community is very powerful. So people using YouTube, very important. Being on webinars and having Webinar Jam or Zoom or whatever. Master classes, school community, school WAP, whatever. Long form course content is very powerful, leading them to like a BSL or a community, and then purchasing your low ticket all the way up to high ticket. I think that's the newer model because there's so much information out there. You have to filter through, and the way you filter through is by following someone that you're like I'll give you an example. I have 7 or 8 people that I watch on YouTube, and I don't just watch them. I've literally watched every single video, whether it's spirituality, fitness, mindset, AI. I have a few people that I watch, but I watch them all the way through. I've watched every video. So that's how you have to be. That's why when I watch, I'm not gonna tell you the person's name, but when I watched this person's video and he was like, yo, I'm dropping a 25K product, boom, sign me up.
Might be familiar, but yes, that's cool. And then to add on to that, because from like what I've seen with our team and like what our numbers do and like based off the research that we've conducted, there's so many, it just goes back to the concept I mentioned earlier of like structuring the funnel. I found that if you're familiar with these like faceless pages of like compete, it's like Albert for president. If you're familiar with that page, there's around like 80, 90,000 followers, just a niche example just for nuance. But for him, he's trying to, one of the best like marketing things is creating the narrative propaganda, and you kind of come up with a mini enemy or the person that you have to win against. And in that, it's him, Albert, which is a completely faceless page with a funny face for the profile. But with him, he's trying to get as many followers as Donald Trump. And he's exploded from that. He's like 90,000 followers. His page has only been about a couple months. Of course, it's more of the entertainment style, so it'd be really hard for him to convert, whether it's probably just going to be like selling merch, etc. But there's so many ways you can structure that too. That seems like you wanted to make a point around that.
Yeah, good point. So look, a lot of the people that have crazy followings, whether on any kind of social, right? TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube, they have entertainment. It's almost like, for the lack of better terms, kind of stupid content. It's just entertainment, right? There's no value. But if you see them, they get at a macro level, they get the highest views, highest engagement.
Yes,
in terms of
but it's hard
reach.
for them to convert into a product.
Correct. Unless you're one of the few, you have all these streamers now learning how to monetize, building brands. You've seen the Paul brothers evolve from bloggers to now icons,
massive brands, VC.
Yep, exactly. But that's a very small niche. The majority, it's very hard to convert. That's why I've seen people with smaller followings or cult-like followings, right? Because they built a culture. Now, Ethan, what's the first 4 letters of culture? It's cult. They built a cult-like following. So whether it's 5,000 followers, 50,000 followers, whenever they sell something, everyone's buying it. You see someone in like the fitness niche, thousands of millions of saturated, right? Like we talked about the fitness niche is saturated. Those few people that really go crazy, they drop clothing lines, they drop supplements, they have, photo shoots, they have coaching, they have all this, they have 9 or 10 verticals within the fitness niche. Right. And that's because they built a cult following with real value. That's why sometimes the follower count is irrelevant. It's these micro influencers are sometimes better. And I've been in the crypto niche for a while. In crypto, the guys with the crazy followings, they don't have the highest conversion because every 5 seconds they're posting about the next stupid project. But the guys with micro followings, anywhere from 20 to 200,000, medium size, they're the ones that whenever they send a coin, boom. It literally everyone follows along because they have trust and they built the authority. So I don't like to use the term influencer. I like the term person of influence. You want to be a person of influence. You don't want to be an influencer.
Yeah. And for that point as well, that's great. From what I noticed is even if it's like you're not trying to be an entertainer, because of course a viewer, they still get value. It just depends on like what definition of value, like what's your definition of value. Their value is they get a laugh, they get a giggle, they share it with their friend. But there's also, I found, and it's only maybe a nuanced case, so like help me with my thinking here, is I found that if you're trying to kind of be a little bit more top of the funnel, because even in top of the funnel, there's top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel, in just top of the funnel. You can be super specific around it. And I was kind of thinking of translating that concept, Albert for president, and have that be for, let's say a sales trainer. Let's say, if you're just for the sake of example, didn't say it's happening, but let's say Daniel G. He has like 6.6 million followers. He's the most, I believe, followed person in the space, Instagram specific. And with him, I was suggesting, I'm not going to name him, but a sales trainer who has a smaller following, but to create like a top of the funnel account, just brand awareness, nothing to convert. Maybe, of course, you could sell them like a $1 community, but like that's probably not worth your time. It's create that, and the goal is to get as many followers as Daniel G. That, of course, is more of a vanity metric, but most people don't think views and stuff or followers are a vanity metric. They just want to follow along for the brand, and you get that micro, you could say micro brand awareness from that, and then have that page be top of the funnel, and then have his main page be bottom of the middle of the funnel, and then maybe like another page be actually focusing on conversion or redirecting that intent, you could say, to YouTube. Like, what are your thoughts on like that potential strategy?
I mean, look, at a high level bird's eye view, guess who did that? I mean, we already know who did that really well. It was Andrew Tate again with the mother-child method on Instagram, right? He made affiliate marketing cool again. That's why communities like School and WAP implemented that 50% affiliate referral link, right?
Yeah.
Because what they did was, remember, and guys, for those that don't understand the mother-child method, what it is, and again, made famous by Andrew Tate, You have the mother page, which is Tate's page, but you have 1,000 other sub pages that are creating content using that original page's content and posting it to different niches with different themes. And the affiliate link goes back to they drew the affiliate link from that
From the main
program,
page,
and they take it
definitely.
from the main IG, right? Now, what happens? You create authority and you create views because now there's perfect example. He was banned on every social. And he was still the most viral guy on the planet. A lot of people do that. Daniel G is a good example. Iman Ghatzi is doing that. Luke Belmar is doing that. All these people, now they're fighting. Now they already made money. Now it's attention. How did they get the most attention? A lot of people with good content right now. Rob the Bank. All these people that are doing very, very good content. It's going crazy because the uniqueness, the in your face all the time. Every single time you scroll from a different page, it's them. That's part of that. Now, to piggyback off of kind of our first point of uniqueness and not being bland, think of guys like Swerve High Ticket. These guys that are making scroll stopping content, but it's very funny, but it's still in the sales niche. So it's not entertainment. It is entertaining, but it's still entertainment with sales, with closing, with objection handling.
It's like the mix. Like you blend the two words together, 100%.
That's it. And so now you have a little bit more than just entertainment. Entertainment's cool, but I've seen people with millions of followers. There was a joke like a couple of years ago. Lady had like 1.7 million followers. She dropped
and she made like 4K a month.
She made like nothing.
Yeah,
minimum. It was like terrible. And she was like crying on social and stuff. Like because she had vanity metrics, she didn't have conversion, as opposed to one of the examples of the guys I gave you, 225,000 subs on YouTube, 150K a month autopilot because of the level of the cult level of following that he built, so you gotta differentiate those things. So one thing you gotta ask is what's most important to you? Is vanity most important to you? Is reach most important to you? Is conversion most important to you? Is quality of the customer most important to you? So, and remember, I had two more things. One, I was one of the few people that sold out an education NFT project completely on Instagram. We didn't even use Twitter like everybody else did back then. We did it on Instagram with content. And then I brought content into something that not a lot of people do, private equity. Private equity is a very boring business, right? When you go to these events, it's very boring and it's very like old school. But I started doing events and shooting
them
content
0 to 1.
Dropping content that's like, oh my God, there's yacht events, cigar events, car rallies, all these different things. People are like, yo, I want to attend. Oh, I see a link. You can submit your own deal. Oh, they raise capital through these events. So I was using and on my Instagram, my partner's Instagram, and our company Instagram, which is less than 2,000 people, we did $80 million worth of deal flow. Just people seeing our viral content. Boom. So again, you got to ask what's important to you,
Yeah, 100%. And then just to add on to like a few points real quick with the strategy that I was kind of briefly mentioning, I agree with the mother page and with the sub accounts below it. I was thinking internally that could be flipped, as in let's say his name is Daniel. Daniel has a page around like 50,000 followers. He's a high ticket sales coach, monetizes through YouTube primarily, and then maybe has some like upsells, cross sells from his Instagram. With him, what I was thinking was like a strategy is he creates a new account internally that is a competition very similar to like the Albert for President, completely faceless, and it just drives brand awareness. And it would be him versus Daniel G. Like, what are your thoughts around that? And then I want to kind of segue into AI and then just content specifically, and then what we're seeing and like the new trends. Would that work?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, bro, that's actually the concept that you're talking about a second ago. I haven't seen someone do that too successfully. I've seen a lot of people creating competition. You see a lot of funny macro level version, right? LVMH, right? Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy. If you go look up how many companies they own all their competition.
A lot.
Yeah. Every single competitor you think you're going to buy something else, they own it. So you're literally, so that's the person I see at a macro level. You see a lot of these e-commerce Shopify guys doing this. They go and create their own competition. The top 3-4 brands is owned by the same person, right? Cars sometimes do this. You think you're buying a Toyota versus a Lexus, it's the same people. Audi versus Lamborghini, it's the same people that get in them. So content is the same way. Now, it's a great idea. We could talk about that at a later time when we connect and build the relationship. But that's a genius idea, creating the competition to see. But again, what's the goal? Is the goal just for awareness and reach? Or are you selling a product? Are you monetizing a specific way? Are you selling a community? Because that's another thing. I've seen a lot of people in the trading world, like traders, you know, Forex, crypto stocks, they have 10 personal brands leading back to the same community, all tagged with UTI tracking links with,
Mhm.
you
Yep.
know, who's bringing content, who's using content to bring their own affiliates, right?
Definitely.
So you've seen people do it that way. So again, what's the goal? Like, you have to ask that.
Yeah, that's kind of like why I preface it in the beginning is like, what are you optimizing for? So let's just quickly segue into like AI trends, micro niches, because one of the biggest thing, if you're familiar with like Ryan Clog, the person that was, for context, guys, the person I sent Ali just to give him a context of like what our today's conversation was going to be about, and shout out to him and a lot of other people. There's a massive uprising in small micro niche channels. So what do I mean by that? Small channels with maybe a couple hundred, a couple thousand, maybe 20, 30,000 followers max. And a lot of creators, even in the big space, are doing that. Think Iman Gadzi. He has his main channel. He has his vlogs. He has, I believe, like 1 or 2 other channels. And he also has the Iman Gadzi business, kind of now, of course, in the rebranding phase because he bought consulting.com, etc. But he's kind of creating content and using specific word choice to attract a certain type of viewer. Whether it is he's using specific word choice in his kind of broad top of the funnel type of page, the one with a couple million, he's kind of using pretty broad words, but in his micro niche Iman Ghazi business, he's maybe using some more jargon that's trying to specifically attract, because the algorithm is so good nowadays of taking content and giving it to a certain type of viewer. But it's also like some people blame it on the algorithm, and that's kind of, I believe, a limiting belief. It's who watch, of course, the algorithm, the YouTube algorithm, social media algorithm still has an extent to like how it's allocated for, but who's watching the video? It's the viewer. So you have to make content around the viewer. Here's another like framework that I have. It's called the you framework. Who watches the video, let's say 5,000, 6,000 times? It's the viewer, not you. YOU. You have to make it based around the viewer. So one of the very simple ways you can do it is just say the word you in the first couple of seconds. People, of course, care about other people, but they care about themselves the most. And you want to make sure it's framed around that, and that must have some payoff with like the dive framework included. Of course, there's a lot of other frameworks I could talk about today, but just for the sake of time, we can kind of now transition to like AI trends, etc. Like, what are your thoughts, Ali? Kind of, you mentioned this already, of just like creating content, clients, etc. What if they're busy? I found there's a lot of new trends of people who are pretty big in business, people like, or just Tom Brady. He started a YouTube channel. There's I saw one that popped off like a couple months ago. It was a guy who runs like a construction company in Europe, and it does like 9 figures a year. And he recently has like a vlog type of channel. Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank has one. So what do you think are like the top 3 trends of this upcoming year? And then maybe like 5, 10 years, like what do you think everything's going to play out content wise?
So look, yeah, of course, as we see these new AI tools, they're being implemented on a daily basis. I mean, look, guys, it's funny because everyone's just getting into AI and ChatGPT and blah, blah, blah. It's been around for like 10 years. Back then I used to develop websites. You can go to Wix.com
Yes.
and build an AI website with just a prompt. That's been there for 10 years. You know what I'm saying? But now it's getting more and more. There's so many different tools that you can use, right? Like I'll give you one for Opus. You can take a piece of content long form, and Opus drops it
Just use
and
it today.
30 short forms for you and tags them and ranks them based on the hook, blah, 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 and does its own edits. Simple stuff like that. Of course, GPT is having all these integrations. I mean, we use it on a daily basis. Copywriting, you don't really need a copywriter. Summarizing YouTube videos. You know, everyone's doing, just yesterday, everyone's
AI
doing
agents.
the caricature. You know, these are simple ways to do it. But now the next step is agentic AI. When you're giving it tasks, you're telling it to send the emails for you. You know, people have chat bots, you know, like exactly. People have chat bots, you know, getting them you're replacing the DM setter, getting them to close already. So there's different tools. Now, to touch on that point, AI is just going to evolve. You're not going to get replaced by AI. You're going to get replaced by someone that knows how to use AI better than you, right? And back then, the example I give to my students is like, it's a tool. Use the tool to your advantage. The internet is a tool. Your car is a tool. Money is a tool. All these are tools. Use the tool. It shouldn't make your life difficult. It should make it easier. So the way I explain it, right? Back in the Industrial Revolution, you had it took 100 years to get to $1 billion company. 100 years. In the age of information and tech, internet.com boom. Took 20 years. You think of your Facebooks and Twitters and With
Mhm.
crypto, it took a year, because remember, my biggest day in crypto, I made $3.5 million in a day, right? And it takes a year to build $1 billion company. In a month, sometimes these VCs fund it, and it goes to, like, whatever, Trump meme coin, $80 billion market cap in 1 week,
Yeah.
But now with AI, you're gonna have one person in his freaking mama's basement creating $1 billion company in 1 day.
Yes.
So you better learn how to use it, or you'll get left behind. That's all it is. So to answer your other question about these celebrities and these A-list,
People.
already people that are stars, already have crazy reach and influence and money. I think there's two things. When you make a extraordinary amount of money, you make $10 million and above, right? Whatever venture it is, it could be tech, it could be real estate, it could be trading, whatever, right?
Mhm.
Once you hit that $10 million mark, first of all, you need to have the financial knowledge to help your money work for you. At this point, you
Definitely.
should be removing yourself from the business. You should have A players around you. You should have multiple streams of income. You should be investing to flip it. That's one. Two other things that you should be doing. One, investing in your health. If you're not already healthy, you should be having like LeBron's, the home setup where he spends
Yeah.
$1 million a year on his home just for biohacking and longevity and vitality.
Mhm.
That's the second thing you should be doing once you make money. The third thing is being omnipresent. So these guys that are like, you see a lot of musicians, you see a lot of artists,
Yeah.
you see, all these different people that blow up in one way. You see a lot. Like, I'll give you an example. One thing that I really enjoy is MMA and UFC, right? So you see a lot of these UFC fighters have personal brands now because they have
Mhm.
someone running their page. Obviously, they're already made money. They're already big in one aspect, right? But now
It just
they
bring
go
them 0 to 1 from some other domain.
correct,
100%.
correct. But they go like this. I'll give you some of my favorite fighters. They get 0 to freaking 20 million followers in a year because you have the whole world following them, right?
Yeah.
And now, like, some of these people, I don't want to put specific names, but if you look it up,
Yeah.
you can see they do like funny content. They're like having cooking shows. They have clothing lines. Like, they're doing different
Mhm.
realms, because once you already make it and you have the cash flow, you should definitely be omnipresent. You should definitely have YouTube. You should definitely blow up on Instagram. You should definitely have TikTok, right?
Mhm.
It's the smartest thing to do, because now you're not on top of the mind in one channel. You're omnipresent in all the realms. So now
Yeah.
you have multiple. You're just expanding your brand's container, your reach across every dimension.
Definitely. And for that too, there's so many like industries. So one of my biggest concepts is with this online business space. There's the online business is great. It's fantastic. It's super fast moving, but it's just one industry out of hundreds, probably thousands of micro industries in regards to like how big this industry is. And one of the biggest concepts and kind of things I've been working on, like my selfish goal here, is with online business. It's called inventizing. It just kind of, if everyone's familiar with it, it's very similar to the Internet of Things, connecting things from the digital world to the physical world. And it can be vice versa too. So for instance, online education, the trends and stuff move way faster and are, like, you could say, way better in taking those concepts and applying them in the real world. So for instance, I live in New Hampshire. I could take the pre-call nurture sequences, shout out Jeremy Haynes, or like the Hydra strategy from him, and take that concept, put it to, let's say, a real estate business in New Hampshire. And this thing's revolutionary. It'll change the business, it'll increase show up rate, etc. And then another point with like the AI and stuff, and also just controlling it, it just goes back to like basic economics, like supply and demand. There is a limited amount of attention. Of course, people could be eventually, hopefully not, 100 years down the road, completely glued to technology 24/7, and they just
We're
have their
kind of
minds
already
in.
there, bro. We're
Yeah, we're
kind of
close
already
to
there.
it. Yeah, we're close to it. But like people have like 8, 10 hours. Like I had a friend who has like had like 22 hours on their phone in one day.
Screen time,
Of course,
yeah.
it's sad because of just how he's allocating his time. It's just like scrolling, etc. But you're just saying, eventually we're going to get to something like that point, and there's has to be the balance of creating good content and then creating great content. Like a good marketer helps you get attention, and then a great marketer helps you get attention and also craft the message in a way that helps you get sales, converts too. So along the lines of like AI tools, I know you mentioned a few like Opus Pro, etc. Like what kind of AI tools are you using specifically for fulfillment on clients?
It just depends, because remember, I don't have a bunch of clients right now.
Yeah, just
The
a few.
tech stack used to be big, but now it's small. We use stuff like Veed.io. Have you heard of Veed?
I have not,
Oh,
no.
Veed is sick. Okay, so check this out. Imagine a client. Remember what I do? I help people build info products, right? So a lot of times you have your. I'm going to show you with this camera. You have this
Yeah.
camera. People are shooting a video, right? But their eyes are darting because they're reading a script. Okay.
Is it a teleprompter kind of thing?
No. Veed auto corrects the eyes to stare at the camera while you read your script.
Oh, that makes it. I'll be using that tomorrow.
Yeah, look it up. Veed.io, very sick, and it's it works for short form. It doesn't work. It's not perfect. Obviously AI is again, it's a tool. It's not perfect, but it's there. If you cut it correctly, it works, right? We've used Synesthesia, 11 Labs for voice and the
voice,
avatar
our team uses
generation.
that.
There's, I mean, there's so many other tools. Like I learned graphic design. My first business was developing graphics, right? Developing and graphics and websites and content editing, all that kind of stuff. So I love Canva. Canva has AI features now. Notion, my project management tool, has AI features
Use Notion
now.
too.
DHL, your biggest CRM, is implementing AI features, right? Obviously, you should be writing copy with ChatGPT, building your own GPTs on the back end, right? Dropping all your resources and everything to it. So there's so many different stuff. There's so many different things. What I like to do is called AI enhance my employees. So of course I have editors, I have designers, I have developers. I give them AI tools that they can use to speed up their output, right? I'll give you an example. One of my editors, he's dropping 7, 8, 10 videos a day for short form, right?
Yeah.
But imagine when I give him Opus, now he has 30 videos he can drop with short form. So I'm just AI enhancing, and whether they are full-time employees, contractors, or even VAs, I taught my VA how to write copy. So now my VA is an expert copywriter because she's been trained on how to do it, right? My executive assistant can do this. So enhancing your current team with AI tools, whether it's creative, whether it's copy, whether it's funnel building, landing page building, whatever department you want to implement, and of course, customer service, all this type of stuff, we should be using AI. So it just depends on case by case. I like to keep the tech stack very minimal, right?
Yeah.
But every single tool has AI integration into it. So,
100%. Okay, cool. And that's great because how I'm kind of positioning myself up for the next short term, i.e. less than a year, and then long term is anywhere past that. My goal specifically, and let's say long term, is not just become a really, really good marketer, but specifically around social media, and not just getting, of course, learning how to get viral, depends on what you're optimizing for, but focusing on the conversion aspect. That's what I'm trying to specialize in the most. And so when it comes to that stage, and of course I've listened to so many movies, so many podcasts, studied so many things, so many pieces of content, and I'm still shaping my worldview around like what's going to happen in the next 5-10 years. But like, how are you trying to keep up with things, trying to be in the room where it happens, etc., so you can stay up on top? Like, what's even your goal, like 10-20 years down the road?
Great question. Yeah, I mean, look, I want $100 million empire. My goal for the next 2 years is $100 million empire between 3 ventures. It's at the intersection of education, of content, of marketing, of tech. But to answer your question, the way you can stay on top is like just being in the trenches. Like I'm attending all the conferences. I go to all the big events. I go to these networking events. I'm not talking about your local networking event at a bar. I'm talking about these big conferences, that have game-changing information. You're seeing the best speakers. I'm going to, like I said, I've spent $500,000 on personal development. It's probably close to 600,000 now going to masterminds, private masterminds with, 20, 30 heavy hitters that we can learn, exchange ideas, and then implement and execute, right? You're learning these things.
Strategy and execution, definitely.
That's it. So, because a lot of people, they go to events and they get all motivated, and the next week they're doing the same shit, right? So you want to be able to have that implementation, accountability. That's why I have my own mastermind communities, 3 of them. But I also join other people's to see what they're doing and connect. And then, of course, staying with the current economic state, political trends, financial markets, what's going on. Like today, if you see the last 48 hours, all your markets, crypto, Forex, stocks, NASDAQ, S&P, everything's red, right? And then, not to get into too much conspiracy, but like there's other things that they're announcing, but that's to distract people from what's really going on, because then the big institutions can come and purchase, all this crypto, and because Bitcoin's 65K right now.
Yeah, it's low. It dropped.
It dropped a lot. I mean, think about it. I've had Bitcoin at 6 figures plus. So
Mhm.
you're seeing it at 65K, like, oh my God, what are they really doing? Because you see 7 years ago, 8 years ago, the institutions, JP Morgan, this and that, they were like, oh, crypto's a scam. Well, then if you look at 7 years later, they're the biggest purchasers right now. So what's really going on? They want to send you the Epstein files and divert the attention, so they can go
Yeah.
and do these things. So the way you stay on top of mind is, being in the trenches, following, just again, bird's eye view. I'm not saying go and invest, go throw
Yeah.
money in the markets, but as an entrepreneur, as a masculine man, as a protector, as a nurturer, as a giver, you should be paying attention to these things and seeing how it doesn't directly affect you. I know, like Grant Cardone mentions it, whether bull run, whether bear run, we're making money, right? That's the
Yeah.
goal. But you got to pay attention to these things so you know how to maneuver around it. And the first thing is having the right information, being in
Mhm.
groups, masterminds, just like Napoleon Hill says in chapter 10 of Think and Grow Rich. The
Yes.
mastermind group is very important. Programs like this with young guys like Ethan, where they're educating people, right?
Yeah.
And they're teaching them, just like our community, EPG, we're teaching financial literacy. So all these things that are going to play a role. And again, it goes beyond finance. It goes into faith. It goes into fitness. It goes into family. It goes into all the other ways that you have to be wealthy. That's why I say max your stats. Be a polymath. Be
Yeah.
good at everything. You should have multiple skill sets. You should have multiple streams of income. You should have multiple residencies and passports and multiple friend groups, because
Mhm.
that's how you stay ahead of the curve.
100%. And to add on to that, there's levels to everything. Like, for instance, you don't know what you don't know, and there's limiting beliefs, and also there's the limiting belief that you have no limiting beliefs in a certain category. And with that, like, for instance, I thought that making $1 million, like a couple years ago, I thought making $1 million a year was fantastic. Of course, it just depends on like what you're satisfied with, what your goalposts are, because if you get to a goal, most people tend to move that goalpost of like, oh, I want to go to 10 million, 100 million, etc. So when it comes to you, when you get to that stage of the like 100 million, do you think you're of course, you're not there yet, so it just depends on more context, but what would you think that you're going to do? Are you going to move your goalpost to even further business, or are you going to be more pivoting to like family, relationships, fitness, spending time, legacy? Like, what do you think that's going to be looking like?
Great question. I've already kind of made that transition because I've already made a couple of million. Of course, the cycle goes, the law of rhythm
Yeah.
goes up and down. Sometimes, in 1 month in 2021, I made $4 million, but then next year I only made $1 million. Then there's a year I lost $1 million. So it, obviously goes like this. But I think it's a holistic way. You have to do that starting now. Once you make a little bit of money, okay, look, the way I say is this: first 100K is hard work. Next
Yes.
million is smart work. The next 10 million is network, right? And then the 100 million is all the different works together. You got to put them all together, right? Now, with that being said, you have to, as when you get to a certain point, money is not everything. Just so you can share some value, but I call it the core framework. Okay, core, CORE. I know you're doing
Frameworks
these
earlier.
acronyms. Exactly. So one is C is clarity, clarity on the offer. So because without a clear destination, speed doesn't matter. You're just going nowhere, right?
Mhm.
So what's the offer? What is the priorities? What's the vision? What's the goal? All that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Number 2 is O, which is organization. Okay, organization is getting organized on your structure, on your team hierarchy, the systems you're using, the ops, the tech stack, everything. It's being very, very organized. Number 3 is resources. Resources are the lifeline of. We're going to get to the next one, but execution, right? Resources. Are you doing this by yourself? Do you have a team? Can you delegate? What AI tools do you have? I usually separate resources into people, technology, and capital. If you have capital, you can outsource the other. If you don't have capital, you can do it yourself, right? And the last one is execution, because ideas, everyone has them. Execution is the true value and the true part. And how do you create execution? First of all, doing it, making mistakes, failing forward, continuous improvement, and then accountability and optimization. So that's their core framework. You have clarity on everything. You have organization. You have resources. You have execution. Now, once you have that infrastructure, you can get into brand pillars. You can get into mastering one channel. That's another important one.
One channel,
one channel, one platform. Yep. You should aim for one audience, cast the net wide, and then go, wide to macro to micro.
Yeah.
And then have maybe a low ticket, mid ticket to a high ticket, and then one identity, one aura, like one person that essentially you're that person. And then just like you mentioned, like Tate has himself versus the matrix. Iman Gutsi has him versus the education system. Ali has, Ali versus the lack of awareness. So he's bringing things into awareness. So you have that protagonist, antagonist. When you have that identity, then you have that entire system. And if you can do that and then sprinkle organic and a little bit of paid marketing, have a strong cult following, you're going from there.
100%. All right. Thank you, Ali, for joining today's call. I appreciate all the value that you gave to the audience, and for the audience, from my part, appreciate your guys' time and the dedication towards today's video. That's it, guys, for now, and peace out.